When watching action movies, many viewers are in awe of the dazzling set pieces and extraordinary sequences on screen. As this genre has developed and grown over the decades, films have gone above and beyond to exhibit new feats. Sometimes the action work is so amazing it looks real. That's because oftentimes it is. The jaw-dropping action is performed by unsung heroes in the movie industry, the stunt professionals. Unfortunately, the industry recently lost one of the greatest stuntmen in history. Buddy Van Horn, the personal stunt professional to Clint Eastwood, recently passed away at age 92. You may not have known his name, but you're more than likely familiar with his work. In this video, we'll take a look at the life and films of one of the most memorable stuntmen in the genre. Breaking into the industry. It's not hard to see how someone would break into the film industry when Universal Studios is in your backyard. However, Buddy Van Horn moved around and worked his way up before he became a stuntman. His segue onto the lot started with his knowledge of horses. His father was a veterinarian, so Buddy had experience riding. There was no better time to have this skill than when the Western genre was exploding in Hollywood. As such, a man of Buddy's talents was a welcome addition. He'd handle the horses and build wagons with others in the picture. As far as stunt training goes, Van Horn picked up the tricks of the trade here and there from other players in the game. As an experienced horseman, Van Horn already had an edge. He knew this too. He spoke about how dangerous the genre could be. He said, quote, "I think more people were hurt and injured around livestock and wagons than the modern-day automobiles." His talents eventually landed him a spot on the Stuntmen's Association of Motion Pictures. It was fortunate Van Horn specialized in westerns because it led him to the most impactful partnership in his career. Pairing with Clint Eastwood. In 1968, Buddy Van Horn was paired with an actor making waves in the western genre. Hot off the acclaim of Sergio Leone's spaghetti western Dollars trilogy, Clint Eastwood was set to star in Coogan's Bluff, directed by Don Siegel. The film follows the trail of an Arizona sheriff sent to New York City to track down a career criminal. The film was half western, half crime drama, all action. As such, Eastwood was going to need a personal stuntman to take on some of the workload. Coogan's Bluff was a moderate financial success, yet it marked the beginning of a decade-long collaboration of gritty action films between Eastwood and Siegel. More importantly, the director and actor duo were impressed with Buddy Van Horn's stunt work, so he tagged along for the ride. Over the next few years, the trio filmed Two Mules for Sister Sarah, The Beguiled, and Dirty Harry. It became clear Eastwood and Van Horn had a connection when Eastwood was set to direct the western High Plains Drifter. One of his first hires was Buddy Van Horn. Not only was High Plains Drifter a critical and financial success, including being one of the highest-grossing films of 1973, but it also solidified a career-long partnership between Eastwood and Van Horn. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to Facts Verse if you haven't already. A long career of stunting with Clint. Buddy Van Horn was the stunt director on a fleet of Clint Eastwood films. Some of the big ones include The Gauntlet, Sudden Impact, Pale Rider, $1 Million Baby, Letters from Iwo Jima, and J. Edgar. While this was an impressive enough resume, the professional relationship between Eastwood and Van Horn developed further. By 1980, Eastwood had already made a name for himself as a director as well as an actor. While working together, Eastwood pointed out that both he and Buddy Van Horn, quote, "share the same tastes in terms of getting the story out there before the camera." It was because of this shared taste that Clint helped Buddy Van Horn become a director in his own right. Van Horn helmed Any Which Way You Can, The Deadpool, and Pink Cadillac. All three films starred Eastwood. Although this was an awesome achievement for Van Horn, his life and career were still primarily based around stunts. A stuntman reflects. Buddy Van Horn was always modest and guarded when it came to talking about the uglier side of stunt work. When asked what his worst injury was in an interview, he jokingly determined his worst stunt gone wrong was jumping out of an airplane and the parachute didn't open. He said the stunt killed him. Of course, he was being facetious, but this is his answer when it comes to bragging about how dangerous stunt work can be. Though Buddy Van Horn did offer up the longest hospital stay from his work was in the range of 5 to 6 months. His philosophy for stunt work was that it's obviously dangerous, but stunt workers need to understand their limits. Far too many are willing to try a stunt that's too dangerous for a paycheck. In these cases, Van Horn admits he's seen some friends die. It's partly due to Van Horn's approach to stunting that allowed him such a long and successful career, but another part is due to how Clint Eastwood works. Eastwood did some of his own stunts. Clint Eastwood is not only seen as a great action star, but also among the most macho people in Hollywood. It's not just for show either. He's pretty hardcore, and because of that, he insists he do many of the stunts himself. Specifically, on the Eiger Sanction, a film about mountain climbing, Eastwood did much of the work himself. This behavior has led to Van Horn and Eastwood butting heads sometimes, both of them insisting they do the stunts. Van Horn is trying to protect his co-star. There have been many times Eastwood wound up with injuries that Van Horn pointed out were not necessary. While they sometimes argue, the two friends have a great working style, and it led to some of the coolest action we saw in films. An unrecognized art. Clint Eastwood has taken home 4 Oscars and been nominated for many more. One they were both proud of was the Best Picture award for $1 Million Baby. Eastwood starred and directed, and Van Horn was responsible for stunt direction on the picture. But unfortunately for all the stuntmen of Hollywood, their work is not yet recognized in the Oscar ceremony. The idea has been kicked around, however. In 1999 and again in 2005, proposals were made for the Academy to set up a category for outstanding achievements in stunt work. Both times the request was denied. But recognition was never something Van Horn was in the game for. He suggested he didn't need trophies for his work. However, Buddy Van Horn did receive an award. The Taurus World Stunt Foundation gave him the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2002. And while this is no Oscar, it's still a very cool recognition to a man who spent his career making sure movie action looked as realistic as possible. Now it's time to hear from you. Have you seen some of the movies Van Horn worked on? Do you think action stars owe a lot to the stunt workers? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.